Lena sat quietly near the window of a cozy restaurant, her hands resting on her lap as she looked out at the soft rain touching the glass. The street outside was busy, full of lights and people, but inside the restaurant everything felt calm and warm. She had chosen this place carefully. It was not too loud, not too crowded, and the gentle music made it look peaceful. Tonight was special for her, her first date in almost 3 years. She had met the man, David, through a dating app. He seemed kind and funny in their messages. For the first time in a long time, she had felt a little hope growing in her heart. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe she would not have to eat alone again. Lena adjusted the red dress she had worn just for this night. It wasn't too fancy, but it made her feel confident. Every few seconds she glanced at her phone, checking if there was a new message. Nothing yet. Her heart beat faster each time the restaurant door opened. She smiled politely at anyone who walked in, thinking it might be him. But every time it was someone else, a group of friends laughing loudly, a couple holding hands, a family with 2 kids. Lena watched them all with quiet eyes, her smile fading a little more each minute. She couldn't hear the background music, but she could feel the rhythm through the soft vibrations in her chair. Her phone rested on the table, showing the open chat window with David. Earlier he had texted, "On my way. Just parking the car." That was 15 minutes ago. She typed, "I'm at the table by the window," and waited. The little scene sign appeared under her message, but no reply came. Lena picked up her water glass and took a slow sip. Her fingers nervously tapped against the table. A few people nearby looked at her curiously when she opened a sign language app on her phone to type out a message. She was used to those looks. People didn't mean harm. They were just curious. Still, it always made her feel like she didn't belong. Finally, the door opened again, and this time her heart skipped a beat. David had arrived. He was tall, dressed neatly in a grey shirt and dark trousers. He looked exactly like his photos, confident, handsome, and a little serious. Lena smiled brightly, waving her hand to catch his attention. He noticed her and walked over with a polite smile. When he reached the table, she stood up to greet him. She signed, "Hello, nice to finally meet you." Then she quickly picked up her phone and typed the same message to show him. David looked at the screen and then at her. His smile faded just a little. He took the phone and typed back, "You're deaf?" Lena nodded, still smiling softly. She typed, "Yes, I hope that's okay." For a few seconds he didn't reply. He just stared at her, his face showing confusion and surprise. Then he sighed quietly and typed, "You didn't tell me that." Lena blinked. She thought she had mentioned it. Maybe not clearly, but it was in her profile, written at the bottom. She typed quickly, "It was in my bio. I thought you saw it." David read the message and looked uncomfortable. He shifted on his feet, avoiding her eyes. She could tell something was wrong by the way his mouth tightened. He glanced around the restaurant as if looking for a way out. Lena felt her stomach sink. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed again, "It's okay, we can still have dinner." He didn't reply. Instead, he gave a small, forced smile and said something to her. His lips moved, but she couldn't understand the words. She waited for him to type, but he didn't. He looked at the table, then at the waiter passing by. Lena's heart started to pound. She felt everyone's eyes on her again. The couples, the waiter, even the people sitting near the bar. She didn't know what he was saying, but she could see the expression on his face. Frustration mixed with embarrassment. Finally, he took out his phone again and typed one short line, "I can't do this." Her breath caught. She stared at the message for a long moment, trying to understand what exactly he meant. Then he stood up. Without another word, he waved the waiter over, saying something quickly to him. The waiter nodded politely. Lena looked up, confused, her eyes wide. She couldn't hear the words, couldn't follow the conversation. She only saw David's lips moving, the waiter's quick nod, and then, just like that, David turned and walked away. Her fingers slowly loosened around the phone. It dropped softly onto the table. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. The lights, the people, the sound she couldn't hear, all of it faded into silence. She didn't move. She just sat there, staring at the empty chair across from her. The waiter came back, placing a glass of water in front of her and giving a sympathetic smile. Lena tried to smile back, but her lips wouldn't move. Her eyes burned as she blinked hard, holding back tears. She wanted to be strong, to pretend it didn't matter. But the truth was, it did. It always did. Outside the window, rain began to fall harder, small drops racing each other down the glass. Inside, Lena sat still, her reflection looking back at her, a lonely girl in a red dress who just wanted to be loved. She picked up her phone, typed a message she never sent, and whispered in her heart words no one could hear. "Why is it always me?" As she wiped a tear from her cheek, someone from another table noticed her, a man sitting with a small girl. The man's eyes softened with concern as he watched her. Lena didn't notice yet. She was lost in her silence, unaware that someone nearby had already seen her pain and was about to change her story. Lena sat quietly at her table, trying to hold herself together, as the waiter cleared the extra glass that was meant for her date. Her fingers traced the edge of her plate, moving in slow circles as if trying to distract her heart from the ache inside. The restaurant buzzed softly around her, the hum of quiet laughter, the clinking of silverware, the faint melody of background music she couldn't hear. To everyone else, it was just another evening. But for Lena, it felt like her world had shrunk to a small, silent corner of disappointment. She picked up her phone again, hoping maybe David had sent an apology, some kind of explanation. But her screen stayed blank. The chat that once made her smile now felt like a cruel joke. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then slowly typed a message she knew she wouldn't send. "You didn't even give me a chance." She deleted it before pressing send and sighed deeply, her chest heavy. At another table across the room, a man named Ryan sat with his little daughter, Ella, who couldn't have been more than 8. The two were sharing a quiet dinner, laughing together as Ella told her father stories from school, using her hands to explain everything with excitement. Ryan listened with a patient smile, clearly a man who adored his daughter more than anything. But as he looked up for a moment, his eyes caught sight of Lena. He noticed the sadness in her expression, the way her shoulders slumped, the tears she tried to hide, the untouched food in front of her. There was something about the way she sat there that made him pause. Ella followed his gaze and turned to look too. "Daddy," she whispered softly, tugging at his sleeve. "Why's that lady sad?" Ryan's eyes softened. "I don't know, sweetheart," he said gently. "Maybe she had a bad day." Ella frowned, her young heart already full of empathy. "Can we help her?" Ryan smiled a little at her innocent question. "Sometimes people don't want help right away," he replied. "But we can always be kind." As he spoke, he noticed something. Lena's phone screen glowed with a message app, and the way her eyes followed her own fingers told him everything. He realized she was deaf. He understood the little signs, the gestures, the expression in her face. Memories flickered in his mind of his late wife who had also been deaf. He had learned sign language years ago just to speak her language, to make her feel seen. Seeing Lena there now brought all those memories back, the good and the painful ones. Lena lifted her water glass to her lips, but her hand trembled slightly. She blinked quickly, fighting back tears, her chest rising and falling faster. The world outside the window blurred through her watery eyes. Raindrops running down the glass looked like her own tears falling again and again. Ryan hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to intrude or embarrass her, but something inside him told him to say something, or rather to sign something. He took a deep breath, glanced at Ella and whispered, "Watch this, okay?" He raised his hand slightly so Lena could see. When her eyes met his, he smiled, a soft, kind smile that carried no pity, only warmth. Then slowly and clearly he began to sign, "You deserve better." Lena froze. For a second she didn't move at all, unsure if she had seen it right. She blinked, her lips parting in surprise. No one had spoken her language in that room. Not the waiter, not her date. And now, out of nowhere, this stranger across the room was telling her something she had longed to hear all her life. Her heart thumped loudly, though she couldn't hear it. She stared at him, eyes wide and full of confusion, then gratitude. Slowly, she raised her own hands and signed back, "You know sign language." Ryan smiled, nodding gently. Ella waved shyly from her chair, her little hands copying her dad's gestures in a clumsy but adorable way. That made Lena's lips curve into a tiny smile for the first time that night. Ryan signed again. "Are you okay?" Lena nodded, though she wasn't sure if she was. But his kindness, that single moment of connection, had softened something in her heart. It felt strange and comforting at the same time. The waiter returned, placing the bill in front of her, and gave her a polite smile. Lena reached for her purse, but her hands shook a little. Ryan noticed. Lena watched him nervously, not sure what he was doing. He walked toward her table slowly, his footsteps calm and steady. Her pulse raced. Everyone else in the restaurant seemed to fade into the background. It was just him, her, and the quiet between them. He stopped by her table and gently placed the napkin in front of her. His eyes met hers for a moment, calm, sincere, and full of understanding. Then he gave a small nod and turned to walk back toward his table. Lena looked down at the napkin. There, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "Would you like to join us for dinner?" For a second, she didn't breathe. Her lips trembled as her eyes read the line again and again. No one had ever reached out to her like that, not out of sympathy but out of kindness. She looked back up. Ryan was sitting with Ella again, pretending not to look. But his daughter was grinning at her, waving her little hand invitingly. Lena stared at them, her heart full of mixed emotions, surprise, hesitation, and a small spark of warmth she hadn't felt in years. She looked down at the napkin again, her fingertips brushing over the ink as a tiny tear slipped from her eye, not from sadness this time, but from something she thought she had lost long ago. Hope. As the soft lights of the restaurant reflected in her teary eyes, Lena took a slow, deep breath and glanced once more toward Ryan and his daughter. For the first time that night, she didn't feel completely alone. And though she hadn't yet decided what to do, the kindness of Lena stood frozen beside her table, clutching the napkin in her trembling hand. The words written on it echoed in her mind. "Would you like to join us for dinner?" It was such a simple question, yet to her it felt like the most unexpected kindness she had ever received. For a moment she thought about sitting back down, pretending she hadn't seen it. But then she glanced toward Ryan and his little daughter Ella. They were both looking at her, not with pity but with gentle smiles, as if telling her silently, "It's okay. You're welcome here." Her heart raced as she picked up her purse and took a hesitant step toward their table. Every eye in the restaurant seemed to follow her, though maybe that was just her imagination. She hated attention, but tonight she forced herself to be brave. When she reached them, Ryan stood politely, gesturing toward the empty chair across from Ella. He signed slowly, "Please, join us." Lena smiled nervously and nodded, sitting down. Ella grinned wide, her eyes bright. She signed clumsily, "Hi, I'm Ella." The little girl's fingers moved awkwardly but full of energy. Lena couldn't help but laugh softly. She signed back, "Hi Ella, I'm Lena." Ryan watched the two of them with quiet warmth. His hands moved smoothly as he signed to Lena. "Ella is still learning. She only knows a few words." Lena replied with a small smile. "She's doing great. Better than most people I know." Ella giggled, clearly proud of herself, and then began drawing something on her napkin with a pen from the table. The moment felt light, comfortable, something Lena hadn't felt in a long time. The waiter came by and handed her a menu. She thanked him with a nod and looked down, but Ryan gently waved his hand to get her attention. He signed, "You don't need to order anything if you don't want to. You can just sit with us." Lena hesitated for a second, then signed back, "I'd like to stay." For a while they didn't talk much. Ella kept showing Lena her little drawings, a cat, a sun, a funny stick figure family. Lena smiled and clapped her hands softly in applause, and Ella laughed. The sound, though Lena couldn't hear it, filled the space around her with warmth. Ryan watched them both with quiet admiration. He hadn't seen Ella so happy in weeks. After his wife passed away, dinners had been quiet and sometimes heavy, but tonight seeing Lena and Ella together felt right. After a few minutes, Ryan decided to sign something more personal. His hands moved slowly but confidently. "You're very brave," he signed. Lena looked at him a little surprised. "Brave?" she replied. He nodded. "Yes, coming here tonight. Trying to meet someone new. It takes courage." She blinked, trying to hold back the sudden wave of emotion that filled her chest. No one had ever said that to her before. People often pitied her, or treated her like she was fragile, but never like she was strong. She signed softly, "Thank you." Ryan smiled, his expression calm and sincere. Then he signed, "I know sign language because my wife was deaf." Lena froze. Her eyes widened slightly, and she looked down, unsure how to respond. She signed slowly, He nodded gently. She passed away 3 years ago. Ella was very young then, but she remembers her mom. Lena's throat tightened. She could see the pain hidden behind his calm face. For a moment, neither of them signed. They just sat there in silence, a silence that didn't feel heavy and it felt shared. Both had known loss. Both had lived with quiet pain. After a minute, Lena signed, "I'm sorry." A stranger had already begun to change her story. Ryan gave a small smile and signed back, "It's okay. She taught me something important, that silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's full of things that matter." Lena stared at him, his words sinking deep into her heart. She had lived in silence her whole life, but no one had ever described it like that. To her, silence was lonely. To him, it was beautiful. Ella suddenly looked up and pointed at Lena's untouched plate from before. She signed, "You didn't eat." Lena chuckled softly. "Not really hungry," she signed. Ella frowned and signed again, "You should eat. Daddy says food helps sadness." Ryan laughed quietly, shaking his head. He signed to Lena, "She's right." You can't argue with her logic. For the first time that night, Lena felt her smile come naturally. The heaviness in her chest began to lift, replaced by something light, something she hadn't felt in years, belonging. They began to talk more, small stories, shared signs and laughter. Lena told them about her work at the art center, how she painted to express the things she couldn't say. Ryan told her about his job as an architect, how Ella sometimes helped him draw blueprints by adding hearts and stars. Time slipped by without her noticing. The waiter refilled their glasses, and the candles on the table burned lower. Outside, the rain had stopped, and faint streetlights glowed through the wet window. Lena looked at Ryan and Ella, her heart quietly full. She didn't know these people before tonight, yet somehow she felt like she had known them forever. Just as she started to feel safe, her phone buzzed on the table. The vibration made her jump slightly. She picked it up. A message flashed on the screen. It was from David. "I'm sorry," the text read. "Can we talk?" Her smile faded. The words hit her like a cold wave. Ryan noticed the change in her expression, but didn't ask anything. Ella looked between them, sensing something had shifted. Lena stared at her phone for a long time, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to ignore it. Another part wanted closure. Her heart raced as she looked up at Ryan again. He was watching her quietly, as if understanding without needing to ask. The soundless tension wrapped around her. Suspense end. Lena looks down at her phone, her thumb trembling over the screen. She glances once more at Ryan, then back at the message. Her eyes fill with confusion. Should she answer the man who broke her heart, or listen to the stranger who made her believe she deserved better? You said Part 4 ChatGPT said. Lena's heart pounded as she stared at the message glowing on her phone screen. "Can we talk?" The words felt heavy, dragging her back to that moment only an hour ago, when David had walked out of the restaurant without a single glance back. Her stomach twisted, remembering the sting of humiliation, the whispers, the stares. She thought she was done with him, done with people like him. But still, that single message made her doubt herself again. She looked up for a moment. Ryan was helping Ella with her jacket. They were getting ready to leave. The warmth that had surrounded their table just a few minutes ago now felt fragile, like it could shatter with one wrong decision. Ryan noticed her still holding the phone and signed gently, "Is everything okay?" Lena hesitated before signing back. "It's from my date, the one who left." Ryan paused, his expression softening. "He texted you?" She nodded. "He said he wants to talk." Ryan didn't respond right away. He just looked at her, a kind, thoughtful look that didn't push or judge. Then he signed, "And what do you want?" That question hit her harder than she expected. What did she want? Part of her wanted to confront David, to demand why he had treated her that way. But another part of her, the quieter, more fragile part, was scared that maybe he'd hurt her again. Before she could sign anything, Ella tugged at her sleeve. The little girl held up a small paper heart she had folded from a napkin. Inside she had written a few shaky words in pencil. "Don't be sad, Lena." Lena felt her throat tighten. She blinked fast, smiling faintly at Ella before signing, "Thank you." "That means a lot." Ryan smiled too. He touched his daughter's shoulder, then looked back at Lena. We're going for ice cream nearby. You're welcome to join us. Or if you need to stay, that's okay too. Lena looked down at her phone again. David's message still glowed, waiting. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "Why did you leave?" But then she didn't send it. She erased it, typed again, "I don't want to talk." Then erased that too. The silence between her thoughts felt louder than ever. Lena's heart pounded as she stared at the message glowing on her phone screen. "Can we talk?" The words felt heavy, dragging her back to that moment only an hour ago, when David had walked out of the restaurant without a single glance back. Her stomach twisted, remembering the sting of humiliation, the whispers, the stares. She thought she was done with him, done with people like him. But still, that single message made her doubt herself again. She looked up for a moment. Ryan was helping Ella with her jacket. They were getting ready to leave. The warmth that had surrounded their table just a few minutes ago now felt fragile, like it could shatter with one wrong decision. Ryan noticed her still holding the phone and signed gently, "Is everything okay?" Lena hesitated before signing back. "It's from my date, the one who left." Ryan paused, his expression softening. "He texted you?" She nodded. "He said he wants to talk." Ryan didn't respond right away. He just looked at her, a kind, thoughtful look that didn't push or judge. Then he signed, "And what do you want?" That question hit her harder than she expected. What did she want? Part of her wanted to confront David, to demand why he had treated her that way. But another part of her, the quieter, more fragile part, was scared that maybe he'd hurt her again. Before she could sign anything, Ella tugged at her sleeve. The little girl held up a small paper heart she had folded from a napkin. Inside, she had written a few shaky words in pencil. "Don't be sad, Lena." Lena felt her throat tighten. She blinked fast, smiling faintly at Ella before signing, "Thank you." "That means a lot." Ryan smiled too. He touched his daughter's shoulder, then looked back at Lena. "We're going for ice cream nearby. You're welcome to join us. Or if you need to stay, that's okay too." Lena looked down at her phone again. David's message still glowed, waiting. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "Why did you leave?" But then she didn't send it. She erased it, typed again, "I don't want to talk." Then erased that too. The silence between her thoughts felt louder than ever. Finally, she locked her phone and slipped it into her purse. She looked up and signed with a small, shaky smile, "I think I'll join you." Ryan's expression softened with relief, and Ella beamed, grabbing Lena's hand excitedly. Together they walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air. The city lights shimmered against the wet pavement. Cars passed by, their reflections dancing in puddles. Lena followed them quietly, her heart still conflicted but lighter somehow. She watched Ryan walk ahead, his hand resting gently on Ella's shoulder, protective, steady, warm. They stopped at a cozy little ice cream shop across the street. Ryan ordered for Ella, who couldn't decide between chocolate and strawberry, so he ended up getting both. Then he turned to Lena and gestured, letting her pick. She smiled shyly and pointed to vanilla. They sat by the window, the soft glow from the shop lights wrapping around them like a blanket. Ella talked endlessly with her hands, showing off her messy mix of sign and gestures, while Ryan translated when needed. For the first time in a long while, Lena found herself laughing, really laughing. It wasn't forced or polite. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere she thought she had lost. As the three of them sat there, Ryan glanced at her. He noticed the way she laughed with her eyes, the way she lit up when Ella spoke. And for a brief moment his chest tightened, not with sadness, but with something new, something gentle. He signed, "You smile with your whole face." "That's rare." Lena blushed slightly and signed back, "I used to smile like that before. It's been a long time." He nodded. "Then maybe tonight is a new start." She looked at him for a moment, at his calm, steady eyes, and then smiled again. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was. Outside, the rain started again, light and soft this time. The streets glistened under the streetlights. Ryan stood up to grab some napkins, and Ella leaned closer to Lena, whispering in her imperfect voice, "Daddy likes you." Lena froze, eyes widening. Ella giggled, covering her mouth. Ryan returned to the table, completely unaware, and Lena tried not to blush. They finished their ice cream, and Ryan offered to walk her home. She hesitated, but the quiet safety she felt with them made her nod. As they stepped out into the damp night, Ella reached for both their hands, one small hand in Lena's, one in her father's, linking them together. Lena looked down at their joined hands and felt her chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't quite name. It was soft, hopeful, dangerous. When they reached her building, Ryan signed, "It was good to meet you, Lena." She signed back, "You too, and thank you for everything." Ella hugged her tightly before skipping back to her father. Ryan gave her a gentle nod. Then they turned and started to walk away. Lena stood at the door watching them disappear into the rain. She wanted to call out, but she didn't. Instead, she touched the small paper heart still folded in her pocket. Just as she turned to go inside, her phone buzzed again. Another message. It was David. "I'm outside." "Please, just 5 minutes." Her heart stopped. She looked through the glass door, and there he was, standing in the rain, waiting. Lena stood just inside the doorway of her apartment building, staring through the glass at the figure standing in the rain. David. His grey shirt was soaked, his hair clinging to his forehead, but his eyes were locked on her. The same eyes that had once made her believe in second chances, and the same ones that had turned cold when he walked away. The sight of him there waiting made her chest tighten. 100 thoughts collided inside her head all at once. Confusion, anger, sadness, fear. She hesitated, fingers tightening around her purse strap. A part of her wanted to run upstairs and lock the door behind her, to forget he ever existed. But another part, the fragile one that still carried old wounds, wanted to know why. Why he left. Why he made her feel small. Why, after breaking her heart in front of strangers, he suddenly cared again. Outside, David raised a hand and gestured toward her, a simple plea to come outside. Lena stayed frozen for a few seconds, watching the rain pour down around him. Finally, she took a slow breath and stepped out. The air was cold, the raindrops soft against her skin. David took a cautious step forward. "Lena," he said, his lips moving carefully. He knew she couldn't hear him, so he pulled out his phone and typed quickly. "I'm sorry. I panicked. I didn't mean to hurt you." She read the message on his screen, her eyes blank. Her fingers moved swiftly as she typed her reply. "You left without saying anything. You made me feel like I was a mistake." He looked down, ashamed. "I just didn't know how to handle it. I've never met someone who couldn't hear before. I got nervous." Lena stared at the words, her anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You didn't even try," she typed back. David's jaw tightened. He nodded slightly as if agreeing. Then he typed, "You're right. I was wrong. I came back because I want to fix it." Fix it? The words hit her like a dull thud. Fixing something meant it had ever worked in the first place. She looked up at him, rain dripping down her hair, and shook her head slowly. Her phone vibrated in her hand, a message from an unknown number. She glanced down. It was Ryan. "Did you make it home safe?" "Ella says goodnight." Her breath caught. In the middle of this chaos, that small message felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. It was simple, kind, and real. Everything David wasn't. David noticed her expression change. "Who's that?" he typed. Lena hesitated, then wrote, "Someone who was kind to me when you weren't." David frowned, his fingers moving faster now. "So you met someone else already?" Lena's eyes widened. She typed furiously. "That's not the point. He didn't know me, but he still cared enough to ask if I was okay. You knew me and still walked away." David's face hardened. The rain poured harder now, soaking both of them completely. His next message came slower. "I made a mistake. I just want another chance." Lena looked at him, her heart heavy. The words might have meant something once, but now they just sounded empty. She shook her head again, signing softly even though he didn't understand. "No." He frowned in confusion. She grabbed his phone gently and typed, "No, David, you can't come back when it's convenient for you. I'm not broken. You just didn't listen." For a moment, neither of them moved. The world around them blurred under the rain. Then from behind her, a familiar voice called out. A child's voice, faint but clear enough to make her turn. "Lena." It was Ella. She was standing under a big umbrella, waving from across the street with Ryan just behind her, holding 2 paper cups of hot chocolate. They must have come back to make sure she got home safely. David turned too, his brows furrowing. "Who are they?" he mouthed. Lena didn't answer. Instead, she looked at Ryan, who was watching quietly from the sidewalk. His eyes weren't filled with jealousy or anger, just concern. He could see what was happening and he wasn't going to interfere. David typed one last message, the screen trembling slightly in his wet hand. "So that's him? The guy you met tonight?" Lena looked at him, then at Ryan and Ella across the street. For the first time that night, she didn't feel small or ashamed. She felt strong. She typed her final message and handed him the phone. "Yes, the one who didn't walk away when I needed someone to stay." David stared at the screen for a long moment, then looked up, his face pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The rain drowned everything between them, his excuses, her pain, their silence. Lena turned slowly and walked toward Ryan and Ella. Each step felt lighter, like she was walking out of an old chapter she no longer needed. When she reached them, Ella held out a small umbrella for her face bright despite the rain. "We thought you might still be here." Ryan signed with one hand while balancing the cups. "You forgot your scarf." Lena looked down. Sure enough, her scarf was hanging over his arm. She smiled faintly and signed back, "Thank you." Again, Ryan studied her for a second. He could see the sadness in her eyes, but also the quiet relief behind it. He didn't ask about David. He didn't need to. Instead, he just handed her one of the hot chocolates and signed, "You look cold." "Let's walk a bit," she nodded. Together, the three of them began walking down the quiet, rain-drenched street, sharing one umbrella between them. Ella walked between them, humming softly to herself, her small hand slipping into Lena's. Behind them, David stood alone in the rain, watching as they disappeared around the corner. His phone dimmed in his hand, unread messages still glowing faintly before the screen went dark. Lena glanced once over her shoulder but didn't stop. The cold night air brushed her face, but for the first time in years, her heart felt warm. The next morning, sunlight filtered gently through Lena's curtains, painting golden lines across her small apartment. For the first time in months, she woke up without that heavy ache in her chest. Still, as she sat up and stared at the scarf draped over her chair, the one Ryan had brought back to her last night, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her under the rain, calm, understanding, safe, but right next to that scarf was her phone, and on it, 10 unread messages, all from David. She hesitated before picking it up. Each message was longer than the last. Apologies, promises, explanations. "I couldn't sleep. Please, I just want to talk once more. You mean something to me, Lena." She sighed softly, tossing the phone aside. Words were easy. Actions, not so much. Lena went to her mirror and brushed her hair, studying her reflection. There was a quiet strength in her eyes now, something she hadn't seen before. She tied her hair loosely, put on a light jacket, and decided to go out for a walk. Outside, the air was crisp and clear, the streets still damp from the night's rain. The cafe where she and Ryan had eaten ice cream was only a few blocks away. As she passed by, she noticed someone sitting near the window, Ryan with his laptop open, and Ella coloring beside him. Her heart lifted slightly. She hadn't planned to see them again so soon, but her feet led her there anyway. Ella noticed her first. The little girl's eyes lit up as she jumped from her chair and waved wildly through the window. Ryan looked up, surprised, then smiled. That same gentle, quiet smile that made everything around him feel a little calmer. He motioned for her to come in. Lena stepped inside, the warmth of the cafe wrapping around her like a soft blanket. Ella ran up and hugged her legs, showing her a messy drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Beneath it, in crooked letters, it said, "Me, Daddy, and Lena." Lena's throat tightened. She knelt down, running a finger over the paper. "It's beautiful," she signed, smiling at Ella. Ryan closed his laptop and signed, "We were just finishing breakfast. You want to join us?" She nodded. They sat together, coffee for Ryan, hot chocolate for Lena, and pancakes for Ella. The morning felt easy, almost peaceful. For a while, they didn't talk about what happened last night. It was as if they all silently agreed to leave it in the past, at least for now. Instead, they talked, or rather signed, about small things. Ella's school, Ryan's work, Lena's photography hobby. Then Ryan leaned forward slightly, his eyes curious but kind. "That man last night," he signed. "He used to be someone close to you." Lena hesitated. Her fingers slowed as she replied, "We met online. He was nice at first, Then he changed when he found out I was deaf. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. His hands moved carefully. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Lena smiled faintly. It's okay. I learned something from it. What's that? He asked. That silence isn't the same as loneliness, she signed softly. Sometimes silence can mean peace too. Ryan watched her for a moment, then nodded. That's true. Ella was humming quietly, dipping her pancake into syrup with total focus. Ryan smiled at his daughter, then looked back at Lena. You're strong, you know that? Lena's cheeks warmed. I wasn't always, she signed. But I'm trying. There was a pause of the kind of silence that didn't need filling. Then Ryan said, Ella's school has a charity fair this weekend. She's performing a small song with signs. Maybe you'd like to come? Lena's eyes brightened. I'd love to, she signed without hesitation. As the morning went on, she realized she hadn't smiled this much in a long time. But beneath the warmth, there was still a flicker of unease. Her phone kept vibrating in her purse. She ignored it at first, but when it buzzed again, she finally took it out. It was another message from David. This one was different. Short. You'll regret this, Lena. Her breath caught. The tone was sharp, not apologetic, not gentle, cold. She felt her fingers go stiff as she read it again. Ryan noticed the change in her expression instantly. What's wrong? He signed. She turned the screen toward him. His face darkened as he read the words. He looked up at her, steady and protective now. He sent this just now. She nodded. He exhaled slowly, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. It had his number written neatly on it. If he bothers you again, call me or text me anytime. Lena hesitated, then nodded, tucking the card into her jacket pocket. Ryan leaned slightly closer, his hands moving carefully as he signed. You're not alone in this, okay? For a moment, she couldn't look away from him. His eyes weren't just kind, and they were steady, certain. And for the first time, she believed him. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the cafe windows. Ella reached for Lena's hand again, squeezing it softly. Don't be scared, she said, her words small but confident. Lena smiled weakly and squeezed back. I'm not, she signed, though deep down a chill ran through her chest. Because she knew that message wasn't the end. The chill that ran down Lena's spine was sharp and sudden. There he was, David, sitting behind the wheel of a grey car parked just across the street, his eyes locked on her through the misty glass. He didn't move, didn't wave, just watched. For a moment, Lena couldn't breathe. Her fingers trembled as she clutched her purse tighter. The warm hum of the cafe behind her felt miles away. Through the window's reflection, she could still see Ryan and Ella sitting at their table, laughing about something simple and sweet, completely unaware of the shadow standing outside. Lena forced herself to take a slow breath. Stay calm, she told herself. He can't hurt you, not here. But when David's hand reached up and wiped the fog from his window, revealing his face more clearly, his expression wasn't regretful anymore. It was dark, cold. She turned quickly, walking back into the cafe. Ryan looked up immediately, reading her expression before she could even sign a word. He's here, she signed, hands shaking. Across the street, Ryan's entire posture changed. His easy warmth hardened into quiet alertness. He looked outside through the glass, his eyes narrowing slightly when he spotted the car. He stood up at once. Stay here, he signed firmly. I'll go check. Lena shook her head quickly. No, don't. But Ryan was already stepping out the door. Ella looked at Lena with big, worried eyes. What's happening? Lena knelt down beside her and signed softly. It's okay, sweetheart. Just stay here with me. But her heart was pounding so hard she could barely focus. Outside, Ryan walked up to the edge of the sidewalk, standing tall and steady as he looked toward the car. He didn't yell or gesture. He just stood there, watching, waiting. For a few tense seconds, the world felt frozen. Then David started the car, the engine growling low and pulled away slowly. Ryan watched until the car disappeared around the corner, then came back inside. Lena stood as he approached. He's gone, he signed, his movements calm but deliberate. But you should be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. She nodded, her hands tight against her chest. Why is he doing this? Ryan hesitated. Because he lost control. And people like that. They hate losing control. Lena looked down, trying to steady her breathing. She had seen this side of people before. the kind that couldn't stand when things didn't go their way. But something about David's stare today felt different. He wasn't just hurt. He was angry. Ryan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Let me drive you home," he signed. She wanted to argue, to say she'd be fine, but when she looked into his eyes, that quiet concern, that protective steadiness, she just nodded. As they left the cafe, Ella clung to Lena's hand again, chatting happily as if nothing had happened. Ryan stayed alert, scanning the streets until they reached his car. The ride was mostly silent. Lena stared out the window, the city passing by in a blur of colors. Her mind replayed every message, every look, every word David had ever said. It all felt like a lifetime ago. When they reached her apartment building, Ryan parked and turned to her. "I'll wait until you're inside," he signed. She smiled faintly, grateful. "Thank you." Again, she signed back. He nodded. "Text me if anything strange happens." She got out, Ella waving enthusiastically from the back seat. "Bye, Lena." Lena waved back and walked toward her building. But as soon as she reached the door, a folded piece of paper taped to it caught her eye. Her heart skipped. Slowly, she peeled it off and unfolded it. A single line was written in bold, messy handwriting. "If I can't have you, no one will." Lena's hands trembled. Her pulse roared in her ears. She spun around, but Ryan's car was still there, headlights glowing softly in the dusk. She quickly walked back toward him, holding the note out. Ryan's face darkened as he read it. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. "That's enough," he signed firmly. "You're staying at our place tonight." Lena shook her head quickly. "No, I can't." "Yes," he signed again, his expression leaving no room for argument. "It's safer. I have an extra room." "Ella will be happy." Her lips parted, but no words came. Part of her wanted to refuse, to say she didn't want to burden him. But another part of her, the one that had been strong for too long, was tired. She needed to feel safe again. Finally, she nodded. Back at Ryan's house, everything felt warm and alive. The walls were painted soft colors. The living room smelled faintly of coffee and vanilla. Ella ran around showing Lena her toys, laughing as if the world outside didn't exist. Ryan handed Lena a towel for her damp hair and a cup of tea. "You'll be okay here," he signed. "I promise." Lena sat quietly on the couch, watching the gentle rhythm of their home. A real family, something she had never really had, something she had always wanted. As the night deepened, Ryan helped Ella to bed, then came back to check on Lena. She was sitting by the window, staring out at the streetlights. He signed softly. "You should get some sleep," she nodded. "I'm just thinking about him," she hesitated. "About everything, about how quickly things change. Yesterday I thought I was meeting someone special. Today I'm running from him." Ryan's gaze softened. "Sometimes life ends the wrong chapters for us," he signed, "so we can start the right ones." Lena looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes glistened faintly in the dim light. "Maybe this time," she signed quietly, "I won't be afraid to start over." Ryan smiled, just a small one. Then he nodded toward the hallway. "Get some rest, Lena. You're safe here." She smiled back, her chest warm with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. But later that night, when the house was silent and dark, a faint sound echoed outside, the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. Lena stirred in bed, heart thumping. She got up quietly and peeked through the window. A figure stood at the edge of the yard and still watching David. He lifted his phone, and for a split second, the flash from the screen illuminated his face. He was taking a picture of her. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers trembled as she stared at her phone screen. The photo was unmistakable. Taken from outside Ryan's house, the faint outline of her face visible behind the curtain. Her heart pounded so loud she could almost feel it echoing in her chest. Her first instinct was to run to the door, to check if he was still out there, but something deep inside whispered no. She froze, barely breathing, and backed away from the window. The quiet night that had felt safe only moments ago now seemed thick with danger. Every creak of the wooden floor sounded too loud. Every shadow felt alive. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time it read, "You think he can protect you? You belong with me." Lena's knees almost gave out. Panic flooded her chest. Her thoughts spun. How did he find me? Did he follow us? How long had he been watching? Her trembling fingers typed quickly. "Leave me alone, David. This is harassment." A moment later, his reply flashed on the screen. "I just want to talk. Step outside or I'll come in." Her heart stopped. She dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a dull thud. Without thinking, she ran down the hallway and knocked hard on Ryan's door. A second later, the light flicked on. Ryan opened the door instantly, his expression changing from confusion to concern when he saw her face. She was shaking, clutching the phone. "He's here," she mouthed, voice trembling even though no sound came. She handed him the phone. Ryan read the messages, his jaw tightening. He didn't waste a second, grabbed his phone, stepped into the living room, and motioned for Lena to stay behind him. He looked through the front window, scanning the yard. Nothing. The night looked calm, too calm. Then, faintly, headlights flickered down the road. A car parked just beyond the fence. Ryan typed quickly on his phone and showed her the screen. "Go to Ella's room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." Lena nodded, heart pounding. She ran quietly down the hall, opened Ella's door and slipped inside. The little girl stirred in her sleep, unaware of the storm outside. Lena locked the door, her hands trembling as she pressed her back against it. From the living room, faint shadows moved. She could hear Ryan's muffled voice through the walls, firm, controlled, talking to someone on the phone. Probably the police, then suddenly a loud bang outside, metal scraping, tires screeching. Lena gasped and rushed to the window in Ella's room. She lifted the curtain just a little, enough to see the grey car trying to reverse quickly out of the driveway. The front bumper had hit the fence. Ryan burst through the front door, flashlight in one hand, phone still to his ear. The beam of light caught the car's license plate as it sped away into the dark. Ryan ran a few steps after it, shouting something Lena couldn't hear. Before it disappeared down the road, for a long moment, everything was still. Lena sank to the floor, shaking, hugging her knees to her chest. Ella stirred again, opening her eyes. "Lena?" she whispered sleepily. Lena quickly wiped her tears and smiled weakly. "It's okay," she signed softly. "Go back to sleep." A few minutes later, Ryan came back inside. His shirt was damp with sweat, his expression tight but calm. He gently knocked on Ella's door. "It's me," he said. Lena unlocked it immediately. He stepped in and closed it behind him. "Police are on their way," he signed. "I got his license number." Lena nodded, her eyes glistening. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring this to your home." Ryan shook his head firmly. "You didn't bring this." "He did." He crouched down beside her, his expression softening now. "You did nothing wrong, Lena." She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe that this nightmare was finally over. They sat there for a while in silence, the only sound being the faint hum of the rain beginning to fall outside again. When the police arrived, Ryan stepped out to talk to them. Lena watched through the window as the officers wrote down notes, examined the broken fence, and asked Ryan questions. Eventually, they left with promises to patrol the area and track David down. Later, when Ryan came back inside, Lena was sitting on the couch, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. He handed her a blanket, then sat beside her. "They'll find him," he signed confidently. "You're safe now." She looked at him, eyes full of exhaustion and gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she signed back. He smiled faintly. "You don't have to. Just promise me one thing. No more facing this alone." She nodded slowly. Then, after a pause, she signed, "I was never good at trusting people. But you make it easier." Ryan's smile deepened, soft but real. He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. For a brief moment, the fear that had gripped her all night seemed to fade away, replaced by something quiet and safe. Morning came with golden light spilling through the curtains again. Ella ran into the room with her hair messy, waving a piece of paper. "Daddy, look! The police left a card," she said. Ryan smiled, taking it. He read it quickly, then looked at Lena. "They said the car was found abandoned a few miles away," he signed. "They're checking nearby cameras." "He's gone, Hub, for now." Lena exhaled slowly, a wave of relief washing over her. She stood and looked out the window. The street was calm, the sky clear. Ryan came to stand beside her. "The worst is over," he signed. She turned to him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe it's the start of something better." Ella came running over, tugging at both of them. "Can we get breakfast now?" she said cheerfully. Ryan chuckled, ruffling her hair. Lena laughed, really laughed, for the first time since everything began. As they stepped outside together, the morning sun warmed her face. The fear hadn't vanished completely, but something stronger had taken its place: hope. She looked at Ryan and Ella walking beside her, then back at the quiet street behind them. For the first time in a long time, Lena felt she wasn't walking alone.